What? I asked, my tone harsher than I meant it to be. What gives you the right to be in our home? Uncle Terence gave me this patronizing grin that made my stomach turn. Your home? Sweet Autumn, you're barely an adult. You can't seriously believe you can keep this house running with 3 boys and no money coming in. This is where our family lives. I stated clearly. My dad left it for us. Really? Aunt Lisa joined in, her tone filled with artificial concern, because we've been going through his documents, and there's no will or paperwork saying that's the case. My heart dropped. With all the overwhelming grief and trying to care for my younger brothers, I never imagined that any person, regardless of circumstances, could be so cruel and heartless as to kick us out of our deceased father's home during such a terrible time. 3 days. They gave us just 3 days to gather our whole existence and abandon the only house my brothers had ever called home. Before I go on, please click that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and tell me which country you're viewing from in the comments. I'm Autumn Carter, and this is how my relatives attempted to ruin us, and how we fought back to reclaim what was ours by right. I'm 32 now, working from my office with a view of downtown Atlanta, but when I shut my eyes, I can still detect the musty smell from that basement unit, where I brought up my 3 half-brothers after everything collapsed. People constantly want to know how I managed it, how I held us all together when it looked impossible. Honestly, I nearly didn't. There were evenings I wept until I fell asleep, questioning if we'd survive another month. But I gave those boys my word, and I've never gone back on my word ever. Let me begin at the start. When my dad, Raymond Carter, died from an unexpected heart attack, he was just 45, healthy as a horse one moment and gone the next. He'd always been everything to me, a man who built himself from nothing, who cherished his family intensely, and who showed me that honesty was more valuable than money. My birth mother, Danielle, had died from cancer when I was very little. I hardly recall her, but Dad preserved her memory with tales and pictures. 2 years following Mom's death, Dad wed Angela, a gentle soul who never attempted to take my mother's place, but cared for me as if I were her own child. Angela had 3 sons, Malik, Jordan, and Cameron. Malik was 15 when Dad passed, reserved, considerate, and mature for his age. Jordan was 13, always cracking jokes and bringing light that could brighten any space. Cameron was just 11, still the baby of the family in all the ways that counted, tender and caring with the most generous spirit you'd ever encounter. Angela was shattered when Dad died. She adored him completely, and seeing her mourn was like observing someone slowly disappear. 3 months following Dad's burial, Angela passed in her sleep. The physician said her heart failed, but I understood the truth. She passed from heartbreak. Within 3 months, I transformed from a college sophomore dreaming of teaching to becoming the only guardian for 3 heartbroken boys. But nothing could prepare me for what followed. The morning after Angela's burial, Uncle Terence appeared at our door with his spouse, Aunt Lisa, and their daughter, my cousin Brielle. Uncle Terence was Dad's elder brother, someone I'd never felt comfortable around even as a kid. There was something about his gaze, a chill that unsettled me whenever he observed our family's humble achievements. Autumn, dear, Aunt Lisa said with false concern, we should discuss the house and what happens to the boys. I was drained from loss and funeral planning, but something about their behavior put me on guard. What are you talking about? Uncle Terence coughed slightly. Look, your father didn't leave any will, and this property has a loan that needs paying. The boys require real guardians, grown-ups who can support them. I can support them, I said decisively. My father left everything to us. You're 19 years old, Brielle cut in with a sneer. You can't even look after yourself. Raymond never talked to us about custody, but we're relatives. We'll take the boys, and you can come see them anytime. My blood turned ice cold. Take them? They're staying right here. We're not separating. Uncle Terence's facade cracked briefly, and I caught the scheming in his gaze. Autumn, think rationally. You don't have work, no money saved. How will you provide for 3 hungry boys? Cover this mortgage? They need security. We'll manage somehow, I said, automatically stepping nearer to my brothers who had been listening from the kitchen entrance. That's when Uncle Maurice showed up, Dad's youngest sibling, always a silent type hanging around the edges. But there was something threatening about his quietness. He'd been examining Dad's documents while we spoke. There's no will, he declared. No insurance either. Only bills. I recognized that was false. Dad was careful with money, constantly discussing how we'd be protected. But when I requested to examine the documents, Uncle Terence got hostile. We're attempting to assist you. Autumn, don't complicate this more than necessary. The following day they returned with Mr. Banks, an attorney I'd never met. He had formal-looking papers that allegedly showed Dad had passed without a will. Based on these documents, as the eldest living family members, the uncles could make choices about the underage children. This isn't right, I kept insisting. Dad made a will. He revealed it to me last year. Mr. Banks wouldn't meet my eyes. I apologize, Miss Carter, but there's no documentation of any will. The property is basically worthless. Only bills in this mortgage house. In 1 week, they had officially taken my brothers from my care. In 2 weeks, they'd sold our family property to cover what they said were Dad's bills. I got 3 days to collect our things and locate another place to stay. The evening before we had to go, I brought Malik, Jordan, and Cameron together in what had been our family room, now bare except for some boxes. Pay attention, I said. I need you to hear this. I'm not sure what's going on or why, but I swear to you this. We're going to make it. I'll look after you, whatever it takes. Even if I have to skip eating, you boys will never be hungry at night. Malik, attempting to be brave at 15, agreed. We understand. Autumn, we believe in you. Jordan, normally the comedian, was strangely silent. Are we actually broke now? I don't have a lot of money, I confessed. But we're together. That's what counts. Cameron climbed onto my lap, something he hadn't done recently. I miss Dad. I understand, sweetheart. Me too. But Dad cherished us. And wherever he might be, he'd want us to look after one another. Can you do that with me? He nodded into my shoulder, and I made a quiet vow to my father's spirit. I wouldn't let his kids struggle. Whatever was needed, however long it required, I'd hold us together. We relocated to a basement unit in East Atlanta that I discovered on Craigslist. The monthly rent was $800, which felt unmanageable on my part-time retail wages. But it was our only option. The unit was humid with short ceilings and a single tiny window that barely admitted light. The owner, Mrs. Rodriguez, was generous enough to accept us with just half a deposit when I described our circumstances. The initial night in that basement, I stayed awake hearing my brothers breathing in their shared room. I had precisely $347 in my bank account, 3 hungry boys to provide for, and zero clue how I'd manage. But I was resolved to succeed. I withdrew from Georgia State University the following week and began juggling 3 jobs. Early mornings, I cleaned downtown offices for $12 hourly. Afternoons, I serve at a restaurant called Sonny's Kitchen for $8 hourly plus gratuities. Nights and weekends, I watched children for wealthy Buckhead families who compensated well and didn't pry about my circumstances. The boys had to switch schools, moving from their pleasant suburban area to crowded, underfunded city schools. I observed them struggle to adapt. Notice how they attempted not to protest about their changed circumstances. Malik matured in ways that pained me. He began handling the grocery runs and preparing meals when I worked late. He assisted Jordan and Cameron with schoolwork and ensured they completed their tasks. At 15, he was more mature than many grown-ups I encountered. Jordan coped through comedy, making wisecracks even when we were consuming instant noodles for the 4th consecutive evening. Hey, Autumn, you figure if we consume enough of these we'll transform into noodles? I could become Spaghetti Jordan. Cameron struggled most of the changes. He'd been the protected baby of the household, sheltered and spoiled, and now we were fighting to maintain electricity. He began having bad dreams and would crawl into my bed at night asking, "Will we be all right, Autumn?" "We'll be perfectly fine," I'd tell him, though I wasn't certain I believed it myself. By our second year in the basement, I had created a routine that barely kept us going. I labored roughly 70 hours weekly, rested perhaps 5 hours nightly, and survived on caffeine and willpower. The boys were succeeding despite our situation. Malik kept a 3.8 GPA. Jordan joined the basketball squad, and Cameron became part of the school chorus. But the pressure was destroying me. One especially hard evening, I returned from my third job to discover the power had been disconnected. I'd been behind on the bill, and despite my desperate calls, the utility company had shut us down. It was December, freezing and dark, and I remained in my vehicle outside our building, sobbing until I couldn't catch my breath. I had precisely $23 in my bank. Rent was expected in 5 days. The boys required winter jackets. Cameron had been coughing, and I feared he needed medical attention, but we'd lost our medical coverage when I left college. For the first time since this disaster started, I thought about contacting Uncle Terrence. Perhaps they were correct. Perhaps the boys would thrive with adults who could genuinely support them. But then I recalled how Uncle Terrence had looked at our home, the planning in his gaze, the haste with which they moved to eliminate me. Something wasn't correct about the entire situation, and my gut warned me my brothers weren't safe with those individuals. I wiped my face, went inside, and ignited every candle I could locate. When the boys questioned the electricity, I made it an experience. We're having an indoor adventure, indoor camping style. Who's ready for scary stories? We gathered on the sofa beneath all our blankets, and for several hours, it seemed like we were a proper family once more. Jordan shared absurd jokes. Malik read aloud by candlelight, and Cameron dozed off in my arms. That evening after they were asleep, I began a diary. I documented all I could recall about Dad's money matters, about the encounters with the uncles and Mr. Banks, about the odd haste with which our world had been torn apart. I wasn't sure why I was recording everything, but some intuition suggested I might require this data eventually. The boys and I created our own customs and private jokes. Sunday mornings became pancake time. Regardless of how little money we had, I always ensured we had pancake supplies. It was our single assured treat, and we made it meaningful with any toppings we could manage. When Malik reached 16, I couldn't get him a vehicle or even a large celebration, but I saved for months to purchase him a quality watch from a second-hand store. "Every Carter man requires a decent watch," I said, repeating something Dad would say. Malik wept when he unwrapped it, not because it was costly, but because he understood what it represented. He recognized I'd given up things to obtain it for him. "Autumn," he said, "you don't need to do such things." "We get it. You're my brother." I stopped him. "You merit good things. You merit everything." Jordan's 16th birthday was unique. He'd been discussing wanting to bring a girl to the cinema, but he was ashamed that he lacked funds or proper clothing. I took extra hours for 2 weeks and purchased him a sharp shirt and brought him shopping for the ideal cologne. "You're so handsome," I said as he prepared for his outing. Dad would be incredibly proud. "Thanks, Mom," he said, then stopped himself. "I mean, Autumn, my apologies." "It's fine," I said, though my throat tightened with feeling. "It's fine." Cameron was unlike his siblings. Sensitive and artistic, with a gorgeous singing talent. When he turned 14, his choir instructor informed me he possessed genuine ability and should think about voice training. I couldn't pay for professional instruction, but I located a retired opera performer who taught from a residence and would trade services. I cleaned her home twice weekly in return for Cameron's training. The first time I listened to him sing at a school performance, delivering a solo that silenced the whole auditorium, I wept right there in my seat. Mrs. Rodriguez, who had grown to be like a grandmother to us, gripped my hand. "You brought up fine, boys," she said softly. "I'm doing my best," I replied quietly. By the time I turned 23, we'd been surviving for 4 years. I was drained in ways that rest couldn't repair, operating on determination and stubbornness only. The boys were thriving. Malik was a senior with university opportunities. Jordan was excelling on the basketball squad, and Cameron was succeeding in singing contests. But I was crumbling. I got persistent headaches from pressure and sleep deprivation. I dropped too much weight, since I frequently gave my food to the boys. I hadn't dated or had any social activities since we relocated to the basement. My whole life centered on employment and ensuring my brothers were safe and nourished. One evening, I fainted at the restaurant, simply collapsed while holding a food tray and blacked out. I regained consciousness in the hospital with Mrs. Rodriguez gripping my hand and my 3 brothers appearing frightened in the corner. "You're worn out," the physician informed me. "Your system is failing. When did you last have proper rest? A complete meal?" I couldn't respond because I genuinely couldn't recall. "Autumn," Malik said when we returned home, "this must end. You're destroying yourself." "I'm all right," I claimed, but we all recognized I wasn't. "No, you're not," Jordan said, "and we can't afford to lose you as well." Cameron, now 15 and nearly my height, embraced me. "We'll discover another solution, but you must care for yourself also." That evening I had a collapse that had been building for years. I wept until I couldn't breathe, grieving not only my parents, but the future I'd abandoned, the aspirations I'd given up, the young years I'd missed. My brothers comforted me while I wept, and for the initial time since this all started, I allowed them to care for me. "I'm frightened," I confessed. "I'm frightened I'm not sufficient. I'm frightened I'm disappointing you." "Are you joking?" Malik said. "Autumn, you rescued us. You provided us everything. We're going to succeed." Jordan contributed. "All of us as one." And eventually, Cameron said with the insight of someone far older, "We're going to ensure you never need to stress about finances again." It was Jordan who initially noticed that something wasn't correct about Dad's property. He was 17 then, studying AP economics, and had begun questioning things about probate proceedings for a class assignment. "Autumn," he said one night, "I've been researching probate procedures. When a person passes without a will in Georgia, there are particular steps, public announcements, court documents. I can't locate any documentation of Dad's property going through probate." I glanced up from the expenses I was attempting to manage. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying if Uncle Terrence was actually designated as our guardian via the courts, there would be records, public files. But there's nothing." Malik was taking notes, his expression set with resolve. "That's not feasible. It's deception. But how? And for what reason?" "Finances," Jordan said plainly. "It's always regarding finances." "But what finances?" "Based on Uncle Terrence. Dad had passed away broke. The home was borrowed against. There were bills. No coverage. No funds. What could they have possibly gained by ruining 4 young lives?" I began investigating further using the abilities I'd acquired from my year and a half at Georgia State. Before I withdrew, I obtained copies of property transfer for our home, work documents for Dad, anything I could access. What I found made my blood freeze. The home had been purchased for $150,000 by a development firm, 3 times what Uncle Terrence said it was valued at. The alleged bills that required the quick sale, I couldn't locate documentation of most of them. The few real bills Dad had were minor: credit card amounts, the home payment. Nothing that would demand selling all he possessed. But the greatest surprise came when I reached out to Dad's previous employer. I'd always understood Dad worked in logistics for a shipping firm, but I'd never grasped precisely what he did. When I talked to his previous supervisor, Mr. Williams, I discovered that Dad hadn't merely been a worker. He'd been a partner. Raymond was brilliant, Mr. Williams informed me by phone. He created a routing method that transformed our procedures. We proposed to purchase his share when he became ill, but he stated he wanted to leave his portion to his kids. His partnership portion? He possessed 40% of Carter Williams Logistics. Didn't someone inform you? When he died, his brothers arrived with some attorney, claimed they were managing his property. They liquidated his shares, claimed it was for bills. The room whirled around me. What was his share valued at? At that time, approximately $3 million. I ended the call and instantly contacted my brothers. When I explained what I discovered, the quiet on the other side was overwhelming. $3 million? Cameron eventually said softly, "They took $3 million from us," Malik said, his tone rigid with rage, "and forced us into hardship while they kept everything, Jordan included." But that wasn't everything. During the following weeks, I uncovered additional parts of the mystery. Dad had certainly had an insurance policy, a substantial one. He'd also maintained savings funds, investment funds, even a modest property portfolio I'd never been aware of. All had been sold right after his passing, with Uncle Terrence signing as the alleged executor of the property. The complete sum they'd taken from us? Almost $5 million. Locating trustworthy legal assistance when you're poor is almost unfeasible, but I was resolved. I reached out to every civil rights group, every legal assistance organization, every pro bono service I could locate. Most rejected me. The matter was too complicated, too costly, too old. Eventually, I located Sarah Chun, a young attorney who had recently opened her own firm and would accept the case on contingency. She was committed to fairness and possessed the means to investigate completely. This is among the most complex estate scams I've encountered. She informed me after examining the proof I collected. We require additional evidence. We must locate the actual will. That's when she proposed we examine Mr. Banks, the attorney who had allegedly managed Dad's property. What we found was that Mr. Banks had lost his license 2 years following Dad's passing for financial wrongdoing. She found him in a small community outside Augusta, where he was selling used cars and drinking to forget his shame. Initially, he wouldn't speak to us, but when Sarah warned to reveal his part in the scam, he eventually cracked. They gave me $50,000, he admitted. $50,000 to eliminate some papers and create others. I was drowning in debt, about to forfeit my firm anyway. They claimed it was merely documents, that the kids would thrive with real guardians. Which papers did you eliminate? Sarah insisted. The will, Raymond's actual will, and trust papers. There was a trust, a large one, established for the kids, but it contained requirements. The boys needed to complete high school, and the girl needed to reach 25 before any could be touched. My heart halted. What was the trust worth? Mr. Banks looked at me with troubled eyes. When I eliminated the papers, it was valued at approximately $70 million. With accumulated interest during the last 6 years, it's likely valued over $100 million currently. $100 million. Where is it currently? Sarah questioned. Still there, still increasing. The institution holding the trust doesn't realize the will was eliminated. They're still awaiting the requirements to be fulfilled. Using Mr. Banks' admission and piles of proof, Sarah submitted a lawsuit that became local headlines. Local family learns their beneficiaries to $100 million estate after years of hardship, the article stated. Within days of the report emerging, my phone was constantly ringing. Uncle Terrence, Uncle Maurice, Aunt Lisa, they all wished to speak. They were worried about the confusion. They wished to resolve things. I declined to communicate with any of them without Sarah there. The initial family gathering in 6 years occurred in Sarah's meeting room. Uncle Terrence entered appearing older and more frantic than I recalled. Aunt Lisa was obviously anxious, playing with her bag, and refusing eye contact. Uncle Maurice kept his quiet, menacing presence. Autumn, dear, I believe there's been a horrible confusion. Uncle Terrence started. The sole confusion is your clients believing they could continue the scam forever. Sarah interrupted. We were attempting to safeguard the kids, Aunt Lisa claimed. Autumn was too inexperienced, too naive, too inexperienced to access her own money, too naive to bring up her own siblings. We can resolve this. Uncle Maurice spoke for the initial time. Relatives don't need to expose private matters in court. You cease being relatives the moment you force 4 parentless kids into the streets. Malik said. He demanded to be there along with Jordan and Cameron. They earned the right to confront the individuals who'd taken their youth. Uncle Terrence's facade started to crack. You children don't grasp the complications. We grasp stealing. We grasp deception. We grasp that you observed a struggle for 6 years while you enjoyed our funds. Jordan interrupted. The funds would have been squandered on a 19-year-old female. Breel spoke for the initial time. She was 27 currently, with a home loan and vehicle payments. At minimum, we invested correctly. Invested it in your lifestyle, you're saying? Cameron stated calmly. His voice had deepened through the years, and there was power in it currently. The mediation collapsed within 2 hours. The most bitter legal fight I could have envisioned. Uncle Terrence employed costly attorneys who attempted to argue I was an inadequate guardian, that the boys would have thrived with them, that any alleged inheritance was bound in legal complications beyond my comprehension. They submitted counterclaims saying I was attempting to blackmail them. They circulated gossip in our previous area that I was fabricating tales for funds. They even attempted to convince my brothers to speak against me, proposing them vehicles and college funds if they would simply say they'd have been better without me. Malik, Jordan, and Cameron didn't even honor the proposals with replies. But the uncles weren't finished. Uncle Maurice, the silent one, proved to be the most threatening. He began tracking me, appearing at my workplaces, making subtle warnings about what occurred to individuals who created problems for relatives. One evening I arrived home from employment to discover my unit had been invaded. Nothing was taken but my papers were spread, my laptop was broken, and a message was placed on my pillow. Some truths should remain hidden. I notified the authorities, but there was no evidence of who had done it. Sarah recommended I be cautious, to change my patterns, to avoid being alone when feasible. The pressure was crushing, but this time I wasn't confronting it solo. My brothers, now adult men, supported me. Malik had completed high school and entered Georgia Tech on an academic award. Jordan had gotten a basketball award to the University of Georgia. Cameron was a senior with a complete award to study at the Berklee College of Music. They could have departed, begun their new worlds, abandoned the legal fight. Instead, they remained with me. You gave up everything for us, Malik informed me. Now it's our chance. The trial started on a freezing February day. The courthouse was filled with journalists, relatives, and interested spectators who had tracked the tale in the media. I sat at the plaintiff's spot, wearing an outfit Sarah had assisted me select. My 3 brothers sat behind me in the front section. On the other side, Uncle Terrence, Uncle Maurice, and Aunt Lisa sat with their expensive legal group, appearing assured and privileged. Sarah's opening argument was powerful. She presented the sequence of deception with accuracy, utilizing papers, banking documents, and witness statements to illustrate a scenario of planned greed and family treachery. The accused didn't merely take funds, they took childhoods. They sentenced 4 parentless kids to years of hardship and difficulty, while they existed comfortably from the victim's money. The defense attempted to argue that they had behaved in good intention, that the legal circumstances had been difficult, that they had truly thought they were safeguarding the kids' concerns. But then Sarah summoned Mr. Banks to testify. The shamed attorney was obviously uncomfortable, perspiring despite the cool courtroom temperature. Under oath, he explained precisely how he had been compensated to eliminate Dad's actual will, and created papers that made it seem Dad had passed without an estate arrangement. They informed me it was for the kids' benefit, he stated, but I understood I was executing deception. I felt guilty every day afterward. When Sarah requested him to name the individuals who had compensated him, he indicated straight at Uncle Terrence and Uncle Maurice. The defense questioning was harsh, but Mr. Banks maintained his account. The harm was complete. Throughout the following weeks, Sarah methodically demolished the uncle's arguments. She summoned Dad's previous business associate, who stated about the $3 million that had been illegally taken. She showed banking documents, revealing how the funds had been split between the 3 couples and used on homes, vehicles, trips, and investments. She displayed the jury photos of our basement unit, compared with images of the uncle's new residences. She showed my employment documents, revealing how I had labored 3 jobs to survive while they existed in comfort. But the strongest statements came from my brothers. Malik testified first, calm and eloquent. He explained our years of difficulty, the compromises I had made, how I had kept our household united through sheer determination. My sister was 19 years old when she took responsibility for 3 mourning boys. He informed the jury she could have surrendered. She could have allowed the state to separate us. Instead, she abandoned her own ambitions to ensure we had opportunities for ours. Jordan was following, using his natural appeal to connect with the jury. He made them smile with tales of our pancake Sundays and indoor adventure nights, then made them upset as he explained observing me exhaust myself. I used to question why God allowed our parents to pass, but I believe I understand now. He recognized we required Autumn to guide us. He recognized she would care for us enough to give up everything. Cameron's statement was the most moving. By now 21 and ready for his music profession, he talked with the confidence of a performer, but his voice cracked when he discussed our difficulties. There were evenings I heard her weeping. He stated, she believed we were sleeping, but I heard her. She wept because she was exhausted, because she was frightened, because she didn't understand how she was going to cover rent. But the following day she'd rise and prepare us breakfast and assure us everything would be fine. And because she trusted it, we trusted it also. When a defense lawyer attempted to propose that the boys might have thrived with appropriate adult guidance, Cameron's reply quieted the courtroom. Autumn didn't merely guide us. She cared for us. She gave up her education, her young years, her social world, her well-being, everything to ensure we had what we required. What we required wasn't funds or a large home. What we required was somebody who would never abandon us, somebody who would honor every vow she made. That's what Autumn provided us. The defense's argument crumbled rapidly. They attempted to claim that they had behaved with positive motives, but the proof of their extravagant expenditure, while we existed in hardship, made their arguments appear empty. Uncle Terrence testified in his own defense, claiming that he had truly thought he was safeguarding us. Under questioning, Sarah revealed his deceptions with precise accuracy. Mr. Carter, you stated that you were worried about Autumn's capacity to support the boys. Were you also worried about her capacity to obtain $100 million trust account? We weren't aware of any trust account. But you eliminated the will that created that trust account, didn't you? No, I never. You compensated Mr. Banks $50,000 to eliminate papers. Are you informing this court you didn't understand what those papers included? The more he was testifying, the more his account fell apart. By the moment Sarah was done with him, it was obvious to all in the courtroom that he understood precisely what he was executing. Aunt Lisa was following, and she collapsed entirely under examination. She confessed that they had been aware of Dad's resources, confessed that they had intentionally concealed them from us, confessed that they had lived years existing from funds that belonged to parentless kids. Uncle Maurice declined to testify, which Sarah utilized a powerful impact in her final statement. This Carter won't testify because he understands there's no justification for what they executed. There's no excuse for taking from kids. There's no defense for sentencing for parentless children to hardship while you exist in comfort from their money. The jury considered for under 3 hours. When they came back, the foreman rose and gave a decision that would transform our existence permanently. In the case of Carter versus Carter, we rule for the plaintiffs on all charges. The judge's decision was even more fulfilling. Not only did he command the instant release of the trust account, but he also ordered extra compensation for suffering, legal costs, and punitive compensation intended to penalize the defendants for their especially terrible behavior. But the actual triumph came when the judge spoke aloud a message that had been discovered in Dad's secure deposit container, a message he had composed us to be read only if something occurred to him. My beloved children, if you are reading this, then I am no longer there, and I am deeply sorry. I want you to understand that all I labored for, all I created was for you. The trust one I've created will guarantee that you never lack for anything. But more significantly, I hope that you will always have one another. Autumn, my courageous daughter, I understand the burden will rest on your shoulders. You are braver than you realize, and I believe in you to maintain our family united. Care for your brothers, but don't neglect to care for yourself also. Malik, you possess my sense of duty and your mother's knowledge. Apply both to assist direct your family. Jordan, you possess the talent of happiness. Never abandon your humor, even in difficult moments. Your family will require your brightness. Cameron, you possess your mother's soft spirit and my persistence. Pursue your ambitions, but never dismiss where you originated. I have provided you sufficient funds to exist well, but beyond that, I have attempted to provide you the principles that will make you decent individuals. Care for one another, encourage one another, pardon one another's errors. Be the family I always imagined you would become. All my affection, forever, Dad. There wasn't a single dry eye in the courtroom. The legal triumph was merely the start of the justice we obtained. During the following year, consequences found each of our tormentors in ways that were both fulfilling and humbling. Uncle Terrence lost his position when his employer discovered about the deception case. His spouse departed him, bringing their daughter and half their possessions in the separation. The home he purchased with our taken funds went into default, and he was compelled to live with family who desired nothing to do with him. Aunt Lisa suffered serious nervousness and sadness, incapable of handling the public disgrace and legal results. She lost a majority of her companions and discovered herself alone and resentful. Uncle Maurice encountered criminal accusations for deception and threats. He was given 5 years in jail where his silent, threatening manner gained no allies. The person who believed he could frighten a young lady into quietness discovered himself helpless in confinement. Brielle lost a position as an educator when the school system discovered about her family's offenses. Her spouse departed her, repulsed by her involvement in taking from parentless kids. She was compelled to return to her shamed father. 2 resentful individuals sustaining each other's bitterness. But the most fitting justice arrived when the IRS began an inquiry into their undeclared earnings. The funds they had taken and used so carelessly turned into a tax disaster that would follow them for years. I didn't rejoice in their collapse, but I won't deny there was profound fulfillment in observing the individuals who'd attempted to ruin us encounter the results of their decisions. The trust account, now valued at $127 million with gathered interest, was distributed to us in phases. As the eldest, I obtained instant access to sufficient funds to guarantee our futures, with the remainder kept until my brothers turned 25. The initial thing I did was purchase us a house, not a palace, but a lovely 4-bedroom residence in a pleasant area with a large kitchen and a yard where we could finally relax. After 7 years in that basement unit, having room and sunlight seemed like a wonder, Malik moved to a superior school to complete his engineering studies. Jordan could concentrate on basketball without stressing about funds. Cameron pursued his music education, now capable of affording the finest instructors and gear. But funds, we discovered, couldn't remove the patterns of survival we created. For months, we all stored food, maintained our lights on throughout the night, and monitored our bank balances constantly. It required time to trust that our stability was genuine. The media coverage was intense initially. Everyone desired to speak with the Cinderella family. As one paper labeled us, we were asked on talk programs, presented book offers, contacted by film creators. We declined most of it. Our tale was ours, and we weren't prepared to share it with everyone. Not then. With monetary stability came the ability to follow our ambitions without urgency pushing us. Malik completed with highest honors with qualifications in engineering and business. He launched his own advisory company focusing on logistics and supply chain operations, continuing Dad's tradition in a manner that would have made him satisfied. By the time he reached 26, his firm had locations in 3 states. Jordan completed university and was selected by a professional basketball organization. A knee problem stopped his playing days early. Rather than being crushed, he directed his energy into training and sports administration. He launched a youth basketball initiative in inner-city Atlanta, providing children the chances he imagined during our toughest times. Cameron's music profession launched like a firework. His debut album, called Basement Dreams, was a homage to our path and achieved massive popularity. He earned 3 Grammy Awards before his 25th birthday and utilized his influence to support foster kids and households in need. As for me, I found I possessed a skill for business and investment. I began modestly, purchasing and improving buildings in disadvantaged areas, then grew into dining, retail, and technology ventures. By 30, I had created my own business empire valued at hundreds of millions of dollars. But our biggest achievement was that we remained united. Through all of it, the wealth, the recognition, the chances that could have separated us in various ways, we stayed a family. When Malik got wed at 28, he requested me to escort him down the aisle. "You've been beyond a sister," he said to me. "You've been our parent, our guardian, our defender. You sacrificed everything to bring us up. Allow me to recognize that." I wept during the whole service, seeing my little brother marry an amazing lady who comprehended and valued our special family relationship. Jordan's marriage 2 years afterward was a party that would have filled Dad with pride. He wed his university girlfriend in a service that packed a whole church with humor and happiness. When he acknowledged me in his toast, naming me the greatest mother a person could want, there wasn't a single person not crying. Cameron's marriage was the most stunning of all, a musical party where he sang to his wife with a composition he created about discovering love following grief. I escorted him down the aisle as well. My youngest brother, now a prosperous man who still contacted me when he required guidance. At every marriage, my brothers openly acknowledged me for the compromises I'd made, for the vows I'd honored, for the care that kept our family whole during the bleakest periods. For years, I was so concentrated on my brothers and creating our new world that I didn't consider love. I told myself that I was overly occupied, overly self-sufficient, overly fixed in my habits to require someone else. Then I encountered David. He was an architect handling one of my business buildings, and he was unaware of who I was when we initially met. To him, I was simply another customer, and I appreciated the simplicity of that. He was considerate, amusing, dedicated, and entirely unimpressed by riches or position. Our initial date was at a restaurant, similar to Sonny's Kitchen where I'd previously served. When I mentioned I appreciated the plainness of it, he chuckled and replied, "Excellent, because I'm not attempting to dazzle you with wealth. I'm attempting to dazzle you with my brilliant character." He did dazzle me. With his honesty, his love for his profession, and his sincere curiosity in who I was as an individual, not what I had achieved or gathered. When I eventually shared my tale, he heard without criticism or sympathy. "You're the most powerful individual I've ever encountered," he stated plainly, "and the most caring. Your brothers are fortunate to have you." "I'm fortunate to have them," I replied. He responded, "You're both fortunate to have one another." That's what genuine family appears like. We wed in a modest service with my brothers as the wedding attendants, and Mrs. Rodriguez, our former property owner, who had turned into a grandmother figure to us, walking me down. It was ideal in its plainness. David and I had 3 kids, twin daughters, Grace and Hope, and a boy we called Raymond after my dad. My brother's kids refer to me as Aunt Autumn, but they also understand the tale of how I brought up their dads. They comprehend that our family is constructed on giving, care, and unshakable connections. Each Sunday, we continue having pancake breakfasts. Now in my roomy kitchen with 3 households assembled around a surface that accommodates 20. The kids giggle at tales of their dads consuming instant noodles for weeks straight, and we ensure they comprehend how fortunate they are. But we also ensure they comprehend the importance of effort, of caring for one another, of honoring vows, even when it's hard. Malik's child, Danielle, called for my mother, is training to become an educator. Jordan's boy Marcus plays basketball similar to his dad, but desires to become a physician. Cameron's twin sons are musically talented like their dad, but based on the principles we instructed them. They are the fourth wave of Carter kids, brought up with care and safety, but they understand their family tale. They understand that their pleasant worlds were constructed on the compromises of a 19-year-old woman who declined to allow her family to be split. Wealth provided us the means to assist others, and we've never dismissed where we originated. Collectively, my brothers and I created the Raymond Carter Foundation, not conclude our tale, but as a continuing homage to our dad and the principles he gave us. The foundation offers urgent help to households encountering unexpected difficulty, awards for students who leave foster care, and assistance for siblings attempting to remain united in the system. We've assisted hundreds of households prevent the division and hardship we faced. Each award we authorize, each family we assist remain united seems like a triumph over the powers that attempted to destroy us. I also began a guidance initiative for young ladies who discover themselves caring for siblings or other relatives. I instruct them useful abilities, how to manage money, how to work through legal structures, how to locate help, but more significantly, I attempt to provide them what I wished I had possessed, somebody who comprehended the burden they were bearing. You're not isolated. I inform each young lady I encounter. What you're accomplishing is difficult, but it's also brave, and you're more powerful than you realize. Now at 32, I reflect on our path with a combination of hurt and satisfaction. The years of difficulty were harsh, but they shaped us into individuals we might never have turned into otherwise. Malik is among the most accomplished young business people in the Southeast, but he's also modest, giving, and committed to family. The duty he carried as a teen instructed him to guide with both power and understanding. Jordan's inherent appeal could have made him conceited, but his years of finding humor in our struggles instructed him to utilize comedy to restore rather than damage. He's turned into a pioneer in youth athletics, transforming worlds through basketball and guidance. Cameron's creative talents were polished by hardship into something genuinely exceptional. His music reaches individuals who have experienced grief and difficulty, providing optimism and restoration equally. As for me, I discovered that care is the most powerful energy in existence. Care made me labor 3 jobs without protesting. Care provided me the power to battle for what was correct. Care kept our family whole when all else collapsed. The funds we finally obtained were transformative, but it wasn't what rescued us. We rescued one another. The following year, on the 10th commemoration of winning our legal battle, I got an unexpected message. It was from Uncle Terrence, composed from the modest unit where he now resides solo. Autumn, it stated, I understand I have no authority to reach out to you, and I don't anticipate forgiveness, but I require you to understand that I consider what we executed daily. We were envious of Raymond's achievement, bitter that he appeared to possess everything while we fought. When he passed, we noticed a chance to claim what we believed he was obligated to us. We convinced ourselves we were shielding you kids from making errors with funds you were too inexperienced to manage, but the reality is we were simply selfish and resentful. We explained taking from parentless children because we desired what your dad had created, observing what you turned into, how you brought up those boys, the achievement you've all reached. It's made me understand what a beast I was. You were a superior parent at 19 than I ever was as a grown-up. Your dad will be incredibly satisfied of the lady you turned into and the men you brought up. I don't request forgiveness because I don't merit it. I simply wish you'd understand that fairness was delivered and it was correct. You merited better from your relatives, and I apologize we disappointed you so entirely. Your uncle, Terrence. I revealed the message to my brothers, and we discussed it for hours. There was still rage there, but also something resembling sympathy. Terrence had ruined his own world through selfishness and envy, losing all that counted while we had obtained all that mattered. I responded to him not to pardon, but to finish the cycle. Uncle Terrence, I composed, I value your truthfulness. What you executed was inexcusable, but I've discovered that holding rage only damages the individual carrying it. I don't pardon you for what you seized from us, but I don't despise you anymore either. You were incorrect about one matter, though. Dad didn't obligate you or anybody else's achievement. He gained it through effort and giving. The sole thing any of us obligate one another is basic human respect, and you miss that assessment entirely. But your message indicates you comprehend that currently. I wish you discover calm in whatever time you have remaining. Autumn, I never received a reply from him. Currently, I remain in my workplace viewing downtown Atlanta, observing the metropolis move below. My businesses hire over 1,000 individuals. My brothers have created their own thriving ventures. Our kids are content and well, maturing with the benefits we never possessed, but also with the principles we discovered in that basement unit. Individuals frequently question me if I lament the years of difficulty. If I desire things have been altered, the truthful response is complex. I lament that my brothers had to witness their sister exhaust herself. I lament that we lost typical teenage moments. I lament the pressure, the anxiety, the evenings I remain awake questioning if I was disappointing them. But I don't lament turning into the individual those difficulties created me. I don't lament the connection those struggles created between my brothers and me. I don't lament discovering that we could endure everything as long as we possess one another. The funds were pleasant to receive, but they weren't what made us wealthy. We were wealthy the instant we chose to confront our obstacles united. We were wealthy each Sunday breakfast when we assembled for pancakes. We were wealthy in the care that kept us united through all of it. Yesterday, Cameron contacted me from Los Angeles, where he was creating his 5th recording. Autumn, he stated, I was in the recording booth considering those previous times, and I understood something. Do you recall what you informed us that final evening in our previous home? You stated we were going to be all right, that you'd care for us regardless of what. I recall I stated, you honored that vow, each individual part of it, even when it appeared unfeasible, even when you were collapsing beneath the burden of it. You maintain us protected, you maintain us united, you maintain us all right. We maintain one another all right. I replied softly. Perhaps, he stated, but it began with you. It began with a 19-year-old woman who declined to allow her family to be split. And observe us currently. We're all accomplished. We're all content. We all possess families of our own. But beyond that, we're still siblings. We still care for one another. We're still all right. After we ended the call, I considered Dad's message, the one the judge had spoken in court all those years before. He had requested me to maintain our family united, and I had. He had requested me to care for my brothers, and I had. But he had also requested me not to neglect to care for myself. And finally, with their care and encouragement, I had discovered to do that as well. The woman who made those vows in a bare family room encircled by containers in doubt had no concept what the tomorrow contained. She couldn't have envisioned the riches, the achievement, the joy that awaited on the opposite side of all that difficulty. But she understood one matter with complete certainty. She would never violate a vow to the individuals she cared for, and she never did. This is my tale, our tale. It's a tale of care defeating selfishness, of household connections more powerful than any power that attempted to shatter them, and of vows honored despite unthinkable challenges. It's the tale of 4 parentless kids who declined to be ruined by the individuals who should have shielded them. We didn't merely endure, we flourished, and each day we rise thankful for the path that led us here, even the difficult parts, because they instructed us who we truly are. We are the Carter household. We are unshakable, and we are existing evidence that care ultimately always prevails. This tale is committed to each young individual who has had to mature prematurely, to each family that has selected care over resentment, and to all who trust that our most valuable inheritance is not what we obtain, but what we provide to the following generation. Before you leave, please remember to subscribe to this channel, like this video, and pass it along to your family and friends. We share videos daily on this channel, so it's worth exploring other videos here as well. Remember to share your ideas and views on this tale. We'll meet you in the following tale. Farewell.